Welcome to Legacy Black of Power. 25 older black actresses who married young men. Hollywood's history is filled with black actresses whose brilliance on screen was rivaled only by the extraordinary dramas of their personal lives. Behind the spotlight, many carried secret passions for men far younger than themselves. Some defied whispers and judgment, boldly embracing these romances, convinced that love knew no age. But while these relationships burned bright, many ended in heartbreak, scandal, and unforgettable consequences. This documentary dives deep into the untold stories of 25 black actresses and their daring affairs with younger men. What unfolds are shocking tales of love, loss, and controversy that left the public stunned. Join me as we uncover who these women were and the details of forbidden romances that challenged Hollywood's rules. Pam Grier, a sorrowful love story written beneath the New Orleans rain. In the 1970s, Pam Grier blazed across black cinema like a comet, from Coffee to Foxy Brown. Her eyes cut like steel, her smile defied a Hollywood still chained by prejudice. Yet by the 1990s, the fire dimmed. She carried the scars of broken romances, with Richard Pryor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and the weight of dreams left unfulfilled. On Valentine's Day 1993, the night was bitter and wet in New Orleans. Pam walked alone down Bourbon Street, neon lights flickering through the mist, her silhouette swallowed by the rain. At Mason Bourbon, a smoky jazz club tucked beneath a dripping awning, she was greeted by whiskey's bite and a saxophone's mournful cry. In the crowd, she found him, a 21-year-old drummer with sun-kissed skin and a reckless smile. Beneath amber shadows, two lonely hearts collided, their silence louder than the music. 2 weeks later, in a cramped Royal Street apartment, they signed a marriage license beside a bottle of cheap bourbon and fragile promises. 18 years between them. It didn't matter. Pam dared to believe love had returned. But fate is cruelest to those who already know sorrow. One stormy night, less than 2 months later, she came home from a failed audition. The weak light of a broken lamp revealed everything. A man's shirt draped across the sofa, a scarlet dress abandoned, her own things scattered like debris. She didn't cry. She simply stood still, staring at betrayal laid bare. Their whirlwind marriage ended as brutally as it began. For nearly 5 years, Pam vanished from Hollywood, a flame drowned by rain. She lived quietly, nursing wounds in dim rooms where echoes of love turned into shadows. Then in 1997, Quentin Tarantino placed Jackie Brown in her hands. Her fierce gaze returned to the screen, but behind it lingered the sound of a lonely saxophone, the haunting echo of a broken Valentine's Day, still unresolved, still playing in her soul. Lola Falana, a mysterious marriage and a cruel betrayal. Lola Falana, once crowned the undisputed queen of Las Vegas, lit up the stage at Caesar's Palace in the 1970s like no one else. With her radiant smile and soft curls framing her face, she didn't just perform, she ruled. Night after night, she captivated audiences, earning an astonishing $100,000 a week, a paycheck reserved only for legends. But on May 5, 1980, the glitter and glory collapsed into heartbreak. That evening, in a dim side room of Caesar's Palace, Lola sat quietly at a gathering of artists. Cigarette smoke curled through the air, cheap perfume clung to the walls, and laughter swirled around her like echoes she couldn't quite touch. A young man, only 22, with tired shoes and a sweat-soaked shirt, approached her shyly, offering a glass of whiskey. No sparks flew, no romance unfolded. Just two weary souls seeking comfort in each other's silence. 2 weeks later, inside the presidential suite on the 18th floor, they exchanged vows in a strange, spiritual ceremony. No papers, no witnesses, just flickering candles and whispered promises. Lola slipped off a platinum bracelet she had once worn on Paris stages and placed it into his hands as a symbol of their bond. But by morning, the bracelet was gone. So was he, and with him, $80,000 she had saved at the peak of her career. On the table, only a crumpled note remained. "I'm sorry. I have to go. My life is just beginning." Shattered, Lola Falana vanished. She tore up her contracts, sold her desert home, and retreated into the silence of a Catholic convent. The dazzling lights of the Strip faded behind her. No more music, no more ovations, only the solemn toll of prayer bells, and nights haunted by dreams that dissolved like soap bubbles. And so the question lingers, did Lola ever wonder that unfinished dance with a stranger was worth sacrificing the rest of her life? Lynn Whitfield. Lynn Whitfield's star once blazed like fire, only to dim under the cold glare of betrayal. A crown that glittered on the Beverly Hills red carpet shattered before the world's eyes. In 1991, her mesmerizing portrayal of Josephine Baker on HBO catapulted her into Hollywood royalty, a diamond gleaming against the industry's shadows. Winning an Emmy wasn't just an accolade. It cemented her as one of the most brilliant black actresses of her generation. Sharp, fearless, and unyielding to outdated standards, she reigned with grace and power. But by the fall of 1994, that light began to flicker. At the Beverly Hills Hotel, where art, ambition, and desire collided, Lynn's world unraveled. In the middle of high-stakes negotiations and a dangerous romance, a 25-year-old director lured her into nights of whispered promises, blurred contracts, and intoxicating passion. Paparazzi circled like vultures, hungry for scandal. On September 9th, their private photos exploded across tabloids. And when the storm hit, the young man didn't protect her. He betrayed her, filing a lawsuit that painted her as the villain. The fallout was brutal. Producers walked away in droves. The film collapsed like a sandcastle against the tide, and Hollywood, so quick to crown her queen, now turned its back as if she had never existed. Through the late 1990s, Whitfield clawed through obscurity, reduced to minor roles, fading invitations, and scripts without sparkle. It wasn't until the early 2000s, with her haunting presence in Greenleaf, that Lynn's flame flickered back to life. Yet the scars remained, silent but visible, a reminder the crown once shattered, its icy fragments still scattered on the red carpet, ignored by those who once cheered her name. Cicely Tyson. Cicely Tyson's life carried moments as profound as the roles she brought to the screen. In the 1970s, through unforgettable performances in Sounder and the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, she didn't just act, she embodied resilience, sorrow, and hope, becoming the voice of black women whose struggles too often went unheard. Yet behind her strength on screen, a deeply personal chapter unfolded far from Hollywood. In May 1981, beneath the blossoms of Parisian spring, Tyson found herself weighed down by an unexpected loneliness. In a quiet Marais tea room, she crossed paths with a 26-year-old guitarist whose disheveled hair and haunted eyes mirrored her own solitude. Two restless souls connected, and though 31 years separated them, age seemed meaningless under the glow of Parisian nights. Within weeks, in a modest attic near Bastille, they pledged themselves in secret, sealed with a simple silver ring bought from a roadside antique stall. But the world intruded. Word traveled back to New York, where family, friends, and industry voices pressed hard against the idea of such a union. A woman of Cicely Tyson's stature, they warned, could not risk a scandalous marriage. 3 days before the wedding, she quietly ended it. No tears, no explanations, just a discarded invitation, and a single white dress left hanging in a damp little room. Tyson would never marry again. She gave her life to her craft, her people, her community. Yet perhaps in the streets of Paris, the night air still carries a faint echo of a guitar melody, a love story silence, but never entirely forgotten. Eartha Kitt. In 1968, Eartha Kitt's fearless anti-war outburst at the White House didn't just make headlines. It changed the course of her life. For more than a decade, her mesmerizing gaze and unmistakable voice had turned every performance into a defiant stand against prejudice. From the playful seduction of Santa Baby to the fierce independence of Catwoman, she was more than a star. She was a symbol of unapologetic self-respect. But after that infamous confrontation with Lady Bird Johnson, Hollywood shut its doors. Shunned by the industry, Eartha sought refuge overseas, landing in Tokyo, where the bright neon lights often masked her quiet sense of exile. There, in smoky rooms like Club Oasis in Shinjuku, she poured her pain into intimate performances, her songs laced with the ache of displacement. In March 1971, fate intervened in a Tokyo jazz club, where she met Kazuo, a 24-year-old dancer from Kobe. Their connection was immediate, blooming against the gray drizzle of Ueno Park. On March 19th, in room 507 of the Shinjuku Washington Hotel, they seal their bond in a private ritual, tying a silk ribbon as a vow of commitment. 3 days later, her world cracked again. The FBI thrust a confidentiality agreement into her hands. The next morning, a Tokyo paper carried a chilling headline: "A young black dancer dead in a motorcycle crash. No questions asked, no answers pursued." Eartha carried on, her career surviving, her spirit outwardly unbroken. But the scars of Tokyo never left her. Beneath the sparkle and strength, a vibrant soul lived quietly suppressed, haunted by loss, silenced by secrecy, and forever marked by a chapter the world would never fully see. Tamara Dobson. 2 decades ago in Baltimore, Tamara Dobson stood like a monument. Nearly 6 feet tall, a striking force who had reigned supreme as one of the 1970s most unforgettable black cinema icons. Her role as Cleopatra Jones wasn't just a performance. It was a cultural statement that carved her name into film history. But when the camera stopped rolling, Tamara slipped away from Hollywood's glare, fading into quiet obscurity. On a chilly night in November 1978, inside a worn-down Baltimore nightclub, destiny intervened. Amid the haze of cigarette smoke and the hum of soulful melodies, Tamara crossed paths with a hopeful 20-year-old bartender. In the clinking of glasses and fleeting glances, 2 lonely souls found refuge in each other. Without headlines or fanfare, Tamara swept them into her world, taking him to California and offering a fresh beginning. Yet the weight of her fame and the solitude it carried was too heavy. Within a year, he was gone, leaving her alone in her lavish home. His departure wasn't cruel, just silent, like sorrow slipping out the back door. From then on, Tamara lived in near seclusion, her once blazing star dimming as illness consumed her body. When she passed in 2006, it was without the roar of applause, only the quiet fading of a legend who had once commanded the screen with fire. Ruby Dee, a surprising late-life romance. Ruby Dee, a powerhouse actress and fearless voice in the American civil rights movement, spent decades at the side of her legendary husband, Ossie Davis. When he passed away in 2005, Ruby was left with silence that even applause and accolades could not fill. The loneliness cut deep, echoing through the quiet corners of her life. Then, on April 19, 2007, inside a Harlem cafe during a poetry reading, fate placed someone new in her path, a young poet, just 29 years old, with eyes that seemed to carry an entire world within them. Their bond was immediate yet discreet. Neighbors whispered, the streets of Harlem watched, but Ruby never confirmed nor denied what they shared. To her, it needed no labels, no legal vows, just a comfort being seen, understood, and cherished once more. In her twilight years, love returned not as fireworks, but as a quiet flame that warmed her spirit. When Ruby passed in 2014, she left behind not only a towering legacy of art and activism, but also a tender secret, a final chapter of companionship that brought light to her later days. Vonetta McGee. Vonetta McGee, Oakland's unfinished wound. With her piercing gaze and magnetic presence, she reigned in the 1970s as one of the most captivating queens of blaxploitation cinema. In films like Blackula, Thomasine, and Bushrod, Vonetta didn't just entertain. She shattered racial barriers and carved out a legacy of fierce, commanding women on screen. But as the decade faded, so too did the spotlight. Quietly, almost like a flame burning out before its time, she withdrew from Hollywood's glare. On June 21, 1980, inside a dim, dust-streaked dressing room of a local Oakland theater, Vonetta crossed paths with Marcus, a wide-eyed 16-year-old actor sharing the stage. Amid long rehearsals and weary nights, their bond grew in the simplest of ways: shared meals, tired smiles, and fleeting moments of solace. It was an unlikely love, whispered about for the age gap, but carried on in defiance of judgment. Yet love, fragile as it is, could not shield her from betrayal. Marcus soon recognized the weight of Vonetta's name and began to wield it for his own gain, securing roles, seeking favors, and basking in her influence. The whispers grew louder. Endorsements slipped away. Producers backed off. By 1982, Vonetta's once rising career lay in ruins, not from scandal splashed across headlines, but from a tender, exploited romance that left her vulnerable. She faded from the public eye, living in quiet obscurity for nearly 3 decades. When Vonetta McGee passed in 2010, there were no salacious revisits of her past, only hushed remembrances of a trailblazer who once embodied Black strength and beauty, then slipped silently into the shadows. Denise Nicholas, the fading lights of Los Angeles. Denise Nicholas once burned bright in Hollywood's darkest hour, her intelligence and quiet elegance lighting up room 222 and in the heat of the night. But behind the camera, tragedy struck hard. In 1977, the sudden death of her husband, journalist Jim Hill, shattered her world. Retreating from the spotlight, she carried her grief in silence. Then, on October 10, 1978, in the middle of a bustling Los Angeles audition, fate intervened. She crossed paths with Terrence, a young supporting actor with dreams still taking shape. Their connection wasn't loud or hurried. It was gentle, almost whispered, like autumn leaves drifting together on the same stream. Coffee shared in hushed corners, glances that lingered long after goodbyes. Love was unfolding softly, beautifully. But Hollywood, ruthless as ever, refused to embrace it. When whispers of their romance surfaced, Denise was abruptly dropped from a major television role. Her extraordinary talent was dismissed, and only one thing seemed to matter: their age difference. Under the crushing weight of judgment and ridicule, Terrence withdrew, broken by the pain of seeing Denise punished for simply loving him. With her heart scarred, Denise turned away from the industry that had once adored her. She found refuge in writing, pouring her heartbreak and resilience into words. Yet woven into her pages was always the same haunting theme: a tender love story, stifled by a world too cruel to let it bloom. Marla Gibbs, a Bahamian love storm. Marla Gibbs, the powerhouse actress immortalized by the Jeffersons, once lit up television with grace, wit, and an iron will. After years of triumph, she chose to step back, craving peace from Hollywood's relentless chaos. But on January 6, 1992, fate intervened. While touring with a small theater production, Marla crossed paths with Terrence, a 25-year-old production assistant brimming with youthful charm and admiration. Their brief escape to Bahamas looked like paradise: golden sands, endless ocean, and stolen moments of tenderness. Then came the photographs, Marla and Terrence hand in hand beneath the tropical sun. Whispers turned into headlines. Was it romance? Manipulation? A dangerous game of power? The truth cut far deeper. Just as Marla prepared to make their love public, she discovered Terrence had secretly struck a deal with a gossip magazine, selling their story for quick cash. Heartbroken, Marla never lashed out. She filed no lawsuits, sought no revenge. Instead, she withdrew, walking away from the stage she had once commanded with fire. What followed was a quiet descent. The brilliant flame that once dazzled millions dimmed to a fragile glow. Her later roles were mere flickers of her former brilliance, reflections of a spirit wounded but too proud to beg for pity. Marla Gibbs, once unstoppable, was left haunted by a betrayal that turned her love storm into silence. Isabel Sanford, a poignant, unfinished waltz. Isabel Sanford, forever cherished as Louise Jefferson, carried her triumphs with grace and quiet strength. But behind the laughter she brought to millions, there lingered one tender memory that never found its ending. On a warm July evening in 1988, beneath the glow of a bonfire at a Southern California fair, Isabel swayed gently in the arms of a much younger saxophonist. His mellow notes floated into night air, blending with a flicker of firelight as two souls, separated by years yet bound by a fleeting connection, danced as though the world around them had vanished. Whispers soon followed: a secret marriage, an age gap romance. The tabloids fed on speculation, but few knew the truth. That relentless media pressure drove the young man away. One anniversary dinner came and went, the table set for two, yet Isabel sat alone. She never lashed out, never confirmed or denied. Instead, she held the memory close, a fragile waltz suspended in time, a dance left unfinished in the glow of the flames. When Isabel passed in 2004, she left behind more than rumors. She left a legacy of laughter, brilliance, and resilience, proof that no scandal, no gossip could ever diminish the light she gave the world. Rosalyn Cash, a love as fleeting as the wind. Rosalyn Cash, the unforgettable beauty of the Omega Man, lived much of her life as a solitary figure in Hollywood's unforgiving spotlight. On September 9, 1990, during a cultural event in Los Angeles, she was seen with a 26-year-old street dancer. Amid the vibrant energy of the crowd, their bond sparked simple, raw, and genuine. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't about ambition. It was about two souls who understood each other, if only for a moment. But that tender spark was quickly crushed. The press descended with venom, branding her with cruel names. Investors pulled their support. Even colleagues she once trusted began to keep their distance. The weight of judgment drove Rosalyn into retreat. She stopped auditioning, closing the door on the career she had fought so hard to build. By the time she passed in 1995, she was living quietly in a modest suburban home, far from the world that once celebrated her. That brief, delicate romance, born in the glow of music and laughter, remained like a gust of wind, fleeting, unforgettable, and leaving behind an ache that never healed. Nichelle Nichols, a stolen kiss at Comic-Con. Nichelle Nichols, the legendary Uhura who broke barriers with her elegance and courage, lived a life where even the smallest moments carried weight. On July 4th, 1983, backstage at San Diego Comic-Con, amid the buzz of sci-fi art and fanfare, she leaned in and softly kissed the cheek of a 22-year-old aspiring screenwriter. Just a fleeting spark, a gentle sunbeam in the chaos of the convention. But that tender moment lit a wildfire. The press twisted it, magnified it, and invaded her private world. The young man, overwhelmed by the sudden spotlight, quietly slipped away. Nichols pressed forward, singing, acting, dazzling crowd as always. But those who look closer could sometimes see it. A shadow in her eyes, the quiet ache of a love story never allowed to unfold. A romance denied by a world too harsh to let it bloom. Juanita Moore, a love dream shattered by gossip. Juanita Moore, whose unforgettable performance and imitation of life touched hearts around the world, carried herself with a quiet grace and a soul full of empathy. On December 1st, 1977, during a small local theater competition, she shared an unspoken moment with a young, aspiring actor, a tender glance that needed no words. Their connection grew in the dim light of old plays and shaky performances on a worn-out stage, fragile yet full of promise. But whispers can be cruel. Malicious rumors swept through their circle, cutting short what could have been a beautiful romance. Rather than fight the gossip, Juanita withdrew, not with anger, but with acceptance. She held on to the memory gently, like a flower denied the chance to bloom. From that day on, she lived a life of solitude, carrying the bittersweet echo of what might have been. When she finally passed, her existence lingered like a haunting melody, soft, sorrowful, and timeless. Alfre Woodard, an unfinished twilight at Venice Beach. Alfre Woodard, the luminous force of American drama, always carved her own path with a rare blend of strength and compassion. On Valentine's Day, 1995, beneath a breathtaking Venice Beach sunset, she was spotted hand in hand with a rising filmmaker. They laughed softly, dreaming aloud of a humble seaside cottage, an escape from the relentless flash of cameras and the whisper of rumors. But fate, ever merciless, intervened. Whispers turned into poison. Secret phone calls became daggers, and promising deals crumbled into dust. Under the crushing weight of scandal and suspicion, their romance dissolved. Yet Alfre refused bitterness. Instead, she transmuted heartbreak into fire, pouring her pain into unforgettable performances that reached even the coldest hearts. Every crack in her soul didn't dim her light. It magnified it until her brilliance was impossible to ignore. Lynn Hamilton, a beachside ceremony like no other. Lynn Hamilton, the graceful actress beloved for her role on Sanford and Son, carried herself with a quiet strength in Hollywood. After losing her husband in 1981, she endured years of solitude, keeping her life away from the spotlight. But in 1985, whispers of a secret romance suddenly brought her back into the headlines. While vacationing in Cancun, Mexico on August 20th, Lynn was spotted strolling hand in hand with a 28-year-old photographer. Rumors quickly swirled of an intimate beachside wedding at sunset. No papers, no priest, just whispered vows in the ocean as their witness. Some even claimed she marked the moment with a tiny tattoo on her wrist, a symbol of love's permanence. But like the tide, the relationship soon faded. The young man disappeared from public view, leaving no trace, and when reporters tried to dig deeper, they found only silence. Lynn retreated once again into seclusion, carrying with her the untold stories of a life both luminous and mysterious. Secrets she would never share before her final farewell. Beah Richards, a birthday that stunned Oakland. The powerhouse actress from Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was long admired for her grace and dignity, a woman who carried herself with quiet strength both on and off the screen. But in the twilight of her career, Richards shocked many when whispers of a forbidden romance began to surface. On March 3, 1979, her 59th birthday, guests at her Oakland celebration were left speechless. Richards was seen arm in arm, even sharing tender moments, with a young street performer nearly 40 years her junior. The two had collaborated in community productions, but their connection seemed to run much deeper. Rumors swirled of a spiritual commitment ceremony, held within an unconventional circle, absent of licenses or contracts, just raw devotion. Yet the relationship ignited a firestorm. Admirers questioned her choices. Critics whispered about scandal, and her reputation took a bruising blow. Hollywood doors closed, pushing Richards into smaller, quieter stages where she continued her craft with dignity. Behind the curtain, however, lingered an ache that never truly left her. She remained devoted to her art until her passing in 2000. Her legacy forever touched by a love story as controversial as it was heartfelt. Teresa Merritt. Teresa Merritt, a blues melody left unfinished in Atlanta. Once the warm, melodic voice behind That's My Mama, she brought laughter and comfort into countless American homes. But when the show ended in 1975, the spotlight slowly faded, and so did her joy. By July 5, 1977, she was living quietly in a historic Atlanta jazz club, sharing her world with a 21-year-old aspiring musician. Their romance was never acknowledged publicly, yet whispers of a secret marriage began to swirl through the smoky halls of the city's nightlife. The dream turned bitter when the young man shamelessly used her name to secure his own gigs, dragging her reputation down with him. Betrayed in love and wounded in her career, Teresa faced mounting financial hardship. Her final years played out not beneath the bright glow of stage lights, but in the dim shadows of fading memories and broken trust. A once glorious song cut tragically short. Della Reese, a Chicago enigma. Della Reese, the powerhouse gospel singer and actress who later warmed millions of hearts as the angel Tess on Touched by an Angel, carried secrets far more complex than the halo she wore on screen. Before her celebrated television comeback, she endured a chapter of quiet turbulence. On December 18, 1991, in an intimate Chicago club, she was spotted beside a gifted young vocalist just 25 years old. Whispers swirled of a clandestine romance. Months spent living together as husband and wife in everything but name, and even talk of a secret wedding to protect their fortunes. But the glare of the media's relentless spotlight proved too much. The affair collapsed under scrutiny, leaving wounds that never fully healed. When Della returned triumphantly to Hollywood, her resilience shone through, yet the Chicago chapter lingered in silence, a guarded scar she carried deep within her heart. Barbara McNair, A Broken Pact. Barbara McNair, the dazzling star of The Barbara McNair Show, once captured the hearts of generations with her radiant voice and undeniable charm. But when the stage lights dimmed, her reality was far less glamorous than the romantic ballad she sang. On August 11, 1976, during a whirlwind tour with a small regional group, she was spotted hand in hand with a much younger musician, just 23 years old. Whispers spread quickly. Some claimed the two had struck a secret marital arrangement, a pact designed not out of love, but as a clever attempt to sidestep community property laws and shield what little remained of her fortune. Yet like so many whispered promises in Hollywood, the pact unraveled. Their split triggered a bitter legal fight that left Barbara financially devastated. And as the years passed, the woman who once shone so brightly lived quietly, her life song fading softly, like the final, lingering note of a ballad disappearing into silence. Madge Sinclair, a shattered romance behind the curtain. Madge Sinclair, forever remembered as the regal queen in Coming to America, carried herself with the grace and dignity of African-American womanhood. Yet away from the spotlight, her private world was far more complicated. On March 2nd, 1986, while teaching drama at a Los Angeles Arts Academy, Madge was rumored to have grown close to a 20-year-old student. Whispers suggested she even considered stepping away from acting altogether for this unlikely romance, despite the stark age gap. But family expectations, the weight of societal judgment, and the unforgiving glare of the media quickly crushed the fragile affair. Madge pressed on with her career, delivering powerful performances to the end, even as she waged a silent and courageous battle with cancer, one that claimed her life in 1995. Carmen de Lavallade. Carmen de Lavallade, a woman whose life has always danced between love and art, faced a new chapter after the passing of her husband, Geoffrey Holder, in 2014. Once a luminous Broadway star who left audiences breathless with every graceful movement, Carmen quietly stepped away from the spotlight and immersed herself in the world of visual expression. Yet whispers of romance soon followed her back to the stage. On May 7, 2016, at a humble rehearsal space in Manhattan, she was seen with a young choreographer, just 28 years old, sparking speculation that their bond went far deeper than mentor and protege. Rumors spread of plans to share a life together, side by side through their remaining years. But Carmen, ever fiercely independent, chose a different path. She returned to the intimate stages, carrying herself with dignity, her art infused with the pain she kept hidden. Instead of breaking her, loss and longing became her fuel, the very fire that kept her dancing, moving forward with elegance, resilience, and an unshakable will. Diahann Carol, a secret engagement wrapped in shadows. Diahann Carol, the epitome of elegance and timeless beauty, known for breaking barriers in Julia and dazzling audiences in Dynasty, entered the twilight of the 20th century with a heart quietly aching for love. On Halloween night 1997, at a glittering New York City masquerade, fate intervened. Amid flickering candlelight and a hum of laughter, her eyes locked with those of a 27-year-old street photographer. Sparks ignited, and in less than 3 weeks, behind the closed doors of a Manhattan apartment, a clandestine engagement was sealed. Not with papers or signatures, but with whispered vows and trembling promises made in the dark. For the first time, Diahann dared to gamble everything on love, marking the moment with a lavish gift. A $9,000 Patek Philippe timepiece, her unspoken pledge of devotion. But love, like autumn wind, proved fleeting. Within 5 months, the young man vanished, disappeared with her personal aid, leaving only silence, betrayal, and a hollow grief she could never confess. Haunted by this private wound, Carol retreated into solitude. The world saw a legend of poise and strength, but behind closed doors she carried the ghost of forbidden romance, an unhealed scar time could never erase. Jayne Kennedy, a high-stakes romance in the Florida Keys. Jayne Kennedy, the dazzling actress who once lit up America's screens on NFL Today and Body and Soul, entered 1984 with shattered heart after a turbulent divorce from Leon Isaac Kennedy. But on Valentine's Day, beneath the blazing Florida Keys sun, Jayne was spotted walking hand in hand with a 23-year-old African-American tennis player. Their laughter drifted across the beach, unnoticed by strangers but impossible to ignore by those who knew her story. For a time, the romance seemed idyllic. Sun-drenched days, whispered promises, and rumors of an informal union that spread from Miami nightlife to Hollywood boardrooms. Yet just 8 months later, love soured into betrayal. The young man filed a lawsuit demanding a share of her fortune. Though no legal marriage bound them, Jayne was forced to surrender nearly all of her personal wealth. The scandal left her career in ruins, pushing a woman once adored nationwide into painful seclusion. And so, Jayne Kennedy became one of Hollywood's cautionary tales, a star who traded the spotlight for silence, carrying a wound the world could never see. We've now journeyed through 25 unforgettable stories. Brilliant actresses who once ruled Hollywood's stage found themselves entangled with much younger men. Some romances bloomed like spring roses. Others collapsed under the weight of heartbreak and scandal. But as the lights fade, questions linger. Does age truly stand in the way of love? Or can passion defy time's cruel hand? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. Which story struck you the deepest? Remember, behind every glittering smile, Hollywood still hides secrets the world may never fully know.